Welcome to the Scale with Pros podcast with your host, myself, Cody Barton, the number one place to be if you want to build a business beyond yourself. And for all the resources we talk about in the show, make sure to head over to scalewithpros.com. All right, so we're going to get another episode kicked off with a good friend here, Trevor, CEO of Carrot.com, Inc. 5000 list. Last 5 years in a row, I believe is what you're saying?
Yep, five times in a row, yeah.
5 times in a row, absolutely amazing entrepreneur, built multiple companies to multiple 8 figures a year in revenue. And all of those accolades are amazing and great, but I would say one of the best accolades that I know about Trevor from the time that I've known him is just being a great overall human that cares about people and really wants to see other people win and be successful, and just genuinely nice guy. So Trevor, thank you so much for coming on here to talk with me and everyone listening to the Scale with Pros podcast. As we'd mentioned a little bit, everyone's trying to get that business to that 7-figure mark, get it to the multiple 7-figure mark. But, what me and you both know is it's not just about that, but it's like, how do we build a business that creates the life that we want to live and that allows us to do the things that we wanted to do when we first started the business? And so, would love for you to maybe kind of share a little bit more into your story. And then we'll kind of, just go through. I think we're going to have a lot of fun on this episode just because we are super aligned with building companies that allow you to live a life you love.
Dude, man, I'm so pumped for this conversation because I own a software company that works with a lot of real estate investors and agents and now other types of businesses, and that's kind of like the main company, right? But through growing that company, growing other companies, some failing, some doing mediocre, some doing amazingly well. As you have, I've had a chance to kind of go through and learn what I like and what I don't like about business, learn where the common traps are, the ones that I've experienced in other people. And hopefully people, as they're listening into this, the one thing that I think will be really interesting to kind of unpack with both of us is we've both hit a level in business where probably a lot of people go, man, when I get there, or if I get there, the clouds are going to part, the angels are going to sing, everything's going to be perfect, everything's going to be amazing. If I can only make $1 million a year, $1 million a year, or 20 million a year, whatever that number is. And I want to have people walk away with a different perspective on what business is and what it should be in your life from this podcast.
As we dive in, do you want to just share a little bit about how, you entered into this, the world of Carrot and everything you've built over the years? And then I do want to get right into the meat and potatoes of how business should be looked at.
I'll kind of do the current and then we'll go back to the past to give people context. So Carrot, it's a 8-figure company. We have about 50 plus employees, so way less than a lot of people, but way more than a lot of people. Enough to kind of have to learn through the leadership challenges and opportunities that there is. We've had periods of time where we've grown really, really fast, and we've had periods of time that were challenges. And there's learning in all that. But going all the way back, dude, Cody, I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. I never wanted to be because my parents, I had a front row seat of what I thought entrepreneurship was, and I didn't want it when I was a kid because my dad, who recently passed away, who was an inspiration for me for entrepreneurship, he became an entrepreneur by necessity because he lost his job when I was probably 7, 8 years old. And I remember vividly, we were driving down the street with my mom, one of my brothers in the car, and we wanted a really simple thing. Like there's these things back when I grew up at a place called Smo's. It's like a little drive-up deal. You get burgers and you get a caramel Coke. And we loved caramel Cokes. And we're like, hey, Mom, can we get a caramel Coke at Smo's? And I remember in that moment, before she would usually say yes, and this time she said no. And she said, well, I'd love to, Trevor, but we don't really have much money now. We've got to be really, really conscious and tight. So I didn't realize that we didn't have funds. We didn't have money. And my dad then ventured out, and my mom did as well, to create their own small businesses. And all that I remember in those years, all the way through junior high, even into high school, is summertime, I'm working in the family business, packing tables and chairs and helping setting up tents for weddings and parties. In the back of the wash rack at my dad's equipment rental store, washing equipment, making my $4.75 an hour. I remember the phone's ringing at night. We actually physically, Cody, lived above the business for about 7 years. So from sixth grade up through middle of high school or so, 1, 2, 3 in the morning, the big bell outside that blared the phone during the middle of the day, so all the workers, someone could go run and grab the phone. It's ringing in the middle of the night. My dad would always answer it. He'd answer it on weekends, he'd answer it on holidays, everything. He was the hardest worker that I knew, and he really set that standard for me to say, like, you could do anything, number one, and especially if you have a great work ethic, you can make it happen if you work harder than other people. The challenge though, man, And I think this is part of what made me into who I am, is I looked at that and I said, I don't want that. It feels like the business owns you.
Yeah.
What I didn't appreciate, Cody, probably as much as I do now, is I didn't appreciate that it took that level of commitment to get it off the ground, right? I'm not going to be one here telling people, hey, you can be lazy in that first 18 months to 24 months of a business. You're going to work your butt off. You're going to put in the hours. You're going to be in what I call the hustle and grind mode for a period of time, where it's draining your energy in some ways, but man, you're building something. But I think the thing that I recognize over the years is at some point we have to escape that. In some point we have to ask, why did I build this business? Or a question that I introduced to you at the start of this, I asked this question myself a few years ago. I was thinking, when I was going through some business and life challenges, I was going, okay, we hire employees. We hire contractors, we hire consultants to deliver an outcome, to do something. And in that little phase of 6 months, things were harder than I wanted them to be, right? I kind of wanted them to be a little easier. And I'm just going, okay. My business kind of consumed my calendar again during that 6 months. And I said, well, what did I hire my business to do for me? And is it doing it? And if it's not, what do I need to change to make that happen? Over the last 10 years with Carrot and other companies I'm a part of that are 7-8 figure companies on the software side and elsewhere, that's always my aim, man. It's like, how do we build businesses that serve us, not we serve them? How do we build businesses that fuel our vision, that we don't fuel endlessly? And how do we build a business that truly matters to the world?
I just love that so much, and how you set up the business. And it's funny because we're so aligned with that, because I talk about that all the time on the podcast of like, I didn't come up with it, it was a strategic coach, like building a self-managing company.
Yep.
And ever since I heard that, I literally remember where I was when I read that. Like, it was for my now wife's birthday. We were in Cabo, Mexico, sitting at our Airbnb. I was sitting on the patio reading, and it was like self-managing company. And it was like explaining what that meant. And I was like, man, that's what I want. I want self-managing companies. I don't want to have companies that I'm micromanaging the people and the outcomes and everything. It's like, I want that. And so it's like those weird moments where you just like so vividly are impacted by something that you like read or you heard or, just can bring you back. Like that just stuck with me. And I'm like, that's what I want to always have, set up businesses to run that way. Otherwise I don't want to be in the business, and now the way that, I've been really focused on setting things up is, okay, if I can't have the people that I hire to, help me run these businesses really, achieve the outcomes that, I'm looking for, I don't want to be involved in it. And that clarity just helps you make such different decisions, and it got me saying no a lot more to things that would be like maybe more money to make, right? Or like another opportunity. But it's like, as you start making more money, after a certain point, it's like incremental more money doesn't change lifestyle, doesn't change anything at all, really. It just like, it's digits on a screen after a certain point of like lifestyle. And I think it sometimes can be hard because people, they just like that chase for more. It's just like more, have to grow. And don't get me wrong, I still want to grow the businesses that I'm involved in and want to be, more successful and, be able to make more money. But I think it's became, just way more critical for me of like, okay, the businesses have to work in the way that then, actually give me the life that I want. And I got married in January and we did our honeymoon and we did like 3 of the Hawaiian Islands, and we were out for almost a month, and I was just like, this is what I've always wanted the businesses to be, where it's like I could be gone that whole time and no one asked me for anything or needed anything from me, where I was like a bottleneck in some of the business somewhere. Obviously like me being involved helps move other things along and new creative ideas, right? But that for me was always the goal once I understood that concept, is like, how do I have that, freedom and flexibility? When did you know that that's what, like, was that from that experience with seeing that with your dad, that you're like, okay, if I do business, like that's what I'm looking for? Or when was that realization for you?
That was kind of a data point that I had in the back of my mind. And then in college, that's when I started kind of latching on to business. Like I said, I didn't want to be an entrepreneur. So after all that, I'm like, well, I'm going to be a doctor. And then I had this college professor named Ari DeGroot, and he was an attorney and a real estate investor. He was passionate about things. He was excited about things. Should have been the most boring class in college, but it was when I was engaged the most with. And I'm like, I'm going to be just like him. And so I tried to be an attorney and a real estate investor, and I got half of that right. I couldn't make it in any law school, even with the 4.0 in college. I've bombed the LSAT twice, but I bought my first rental property in my junior year in college, like a 4-unit building, the whole thing. So that was kind of my intro into business. But I had my parents' experience in the back of my mind. But then I would see people like us here on this podcast, right? I would see people and I go, well, I know that people say that once you hit this level of income that it doesn't feel like it means as much, da da da. And I go, I don't believe it. I'm going to be the exception. And I
got to find out for myself.
Yeah, I'm going to be in your shoes. I want to experience it myself, which I think there's validity in that. And so I started building businesses, and it wasn't until a business that I owned with a great friend of mine, Patrick Riddle. His business is a big business now. The business I used to own 50% of, they're going to do 30 million plus this year. And just doing an amazing job. That 4 years was amazing, but it was hard because I learned how to drive revenue. I learned how to create products. I learned how to really run a business, but I kept on hitting this spot in business, that business, and another one, Cody. I call it a pain line today. I kept hitting this spot between $500,000 and $1 million. I could not get over it. And things got hard and life got hard. And even though I was making good money at the end of the year, like on my tax statement, I was stressed almost every month. I didn't know how to grow through that. And then all that happens during those phases, I've experienced like one of three things happens when you hit these pain lines. And there's pain lines, Cody, at 3s and 10s in revenue. Okay, 100,000, 300,000, $1 million, 3 million, 10 million, 30 million. Clayton Mask, the former head of Keep, they just exited this last handful of years. He wrote
his brother's my business coach, Jeff.
Dude, heck yeah, man. So Clay and Jeff might have been a part of the book, but they wrote the book Conquer the Chaos in 2009, and I think they're coming out with the new version, or maybe they just did. In that book, he introduced the 3s and 10s concept. And around that time in 2000, let's say 10, 11, when business was getting hard for me, I read that book, and I was like, wow, so I'm normal. I'm not some anomaly who can't figure business out. It's just normal to go through a challenge at this phase. And so then I said, well, life in business doesn't have to be this hard. It is hard now. Where do I need to grow? What do I need to learn? How do I need to get better to be able to get on the other side of this pain line? In that time for me, I started looking at entrepreneurship and I was going, okay, I've got to use entrepreneurship and business as a tool, not as I'm going to slave away for the sake of this thing, but I'm going to build something so it can serve me, serve the people that I'm, that are in my community, and serve the impact I think I can make in the world. And in that time period, this was in 2012, I completely shifted how I thought about business. Before that, it was get some money going, move away from the pain, move away from me having to get a job. That was the full motivation. And in the early days, I've experienced with myself and a lot of people, oftentimes the motivation that we have when we're starting a company is usually to move away from pain, right? I don't like this job. I'm trying to get away from this job. Or I'm trying to get away from a business that I own that I don't like anymore. Or I'm trying to get away from this income ceiling. Or I'm trying to prove people wrong. That they're saying I can't do this thing and I'm going to prove them wrong. I'm moving away from this thing that I want to get away from. The challenge that happens, I discover, I call it the 3-year turn and burn cycle. About 3 years in, after you start that company, things start to get a little bit hard again. Because we've probably escaped that original motivator. We now have some income coming in. We've escaped that thing that we were trying to get away from. But where the challenge is, Cody, and this is where I really started learning the most, is going, okay, when we hit that spot, we're away from the exciting startup phase now, which is what most of us entrepreneurs like.
The honeymoon phase.
Yeah, now we're kind of in maintenance phase and we're trying to figure out what we want to do next. We oftentimes get distracted. We get distracted by new opportunity. We go, well, this worked and now I'm going to do this because this is draining my energy now. And if we don't build a real business with real people and real systems that's sustainable on this business that got us there, we get distracted and put our eyes on something else. All of a sudden, this main business starts to go down because our energy's not there and we're experimenting with this new thing. And then we have this every 3 years, we're on this cycle, dude, of this, I call it 3-year turn and burn cycle. And so I was experiencing that. I'd done it 2 times in a row where I got 3 to 4 years into a business and I got burnt out. And I'm like, dude, how do I get past this? What I'm doing is not working. It's making some money, but it doesn't feel like it's giving me joy. Like I thought when I made my first $1 million, the clouds would part, the angels would sing, everything would just be amazing. And it wasn't, nothing changed. Like I've had my biggest revenue months ever. My first ever $1 million month was probably the month that I had the least joy in that entire year. And so what I did, Cody, was I said, well, I want to look at business differently. I'm going to stop looking at business as a productivity thing, of like making my calendar around productivity. I'm going to stop prioritizing my tasks based on what makes money. Because people would tell me, Dude, Trevor, draw a line down the middle of the paper. Everything that makes you money that you're doing, put on one side, and everything that doesn't make you money, put on the other side. And your job is to delegate everything that doesn't make you money and put all your time into things that make you money. And I did that, and I made money. I also built a business that I didn't like. And so I go, let me just play with this. So I know that I can make money and be miserable at the same time. What if I built a business that gave me energy? And maybe if I focused more on things that gave me energy that I loved, maybe I'll also make more money. So that's when I created my energy audit. Line down the middle of paper. Let me now write things that give me energy, either doing or not doing. And then let me write down things that are draining my energy. My aim was every quarter, take that list of energy draining things, pick the 1 or 2 most draining things, write down how many hours a week I'm spending on that thing. And then that's my number one task. Not this new marketing campaign, not this new thing. My number one task is to eliminate energy draining things by delegating, creating a process, or saying no, and then adding that time with backfilling it or trading up into things that give me energy. Dude, even if they don't make money. So today, I'll give you an example. Thursdays are sauna cold plunge Thursdays with my buddies. So from 8 a.m. till 10 a.m., I cut out an hour of work. We go to the river by where I live. We cold plunge, 40-degree water today, 3 rounds of it, and then we sit in his finished sauna and we just hang out as buds. We do that every week. Monthly shooting at the gun range, right? Bringing my friends along. Quarterly date weekends with my wife. We're heading out tomorrow for 3 days of just our quarterly retreat as a couple. I started saying, I'm going to add in and put in things that give me energy in life. Ask the question, why not now? Why does it have to be in the future? Why can't I do this now? Why can't I enjoy this thing now by changing my calendar and then build business around it? So that's what I focus on the last 6-7 years, man, is asking why not now and how do we build a business that serves us.
And like I've been like squirming in my chair of like I need to do an energy audit. Like I haven't done that in a while. I feel like I do a reasonably good job because I'm like pretty aware of like I'm like feeling lots of friction in an area, and I'm like that's because I'm not enjoying it. I need to find help or find something or stop it somehow, So there's lots to unpack there too, from what you're saying. Like one of the things that I've noticed too is like entrepreneurs, they like jump from business to business because they reach their old devil that they couldn't overcome in that other business, and then they start the new one. Like they reach that same challenge. It's like, okay, they grow it, and it's like they weren't good at hiring people, so the business caps out at the point where they needed to, build a team. And then they're like, oh, well, it must be the business model, and I need to go do a new business. And then they grow it to the point of not being able to hire people again, or not master like some skill, and that has to be like overcame, is like one of those patterns that I've recognized. Let me ask you this, and this is selfishly for me asking your advice on this on this energy audit, right? And I'll just lay it out there for like transparency of what I'm doing with Scale with Pros. So the thing in business that sucks the energy out of my soul more than anything is sales. Doing sales for me, like I just like immediately, like I could be at a 10 out of 10 joy, happiness for the day, and as soon as like I have to go into a sale type conversation, I'm just like it's like miserable for me to do sales. And I like doing vision casting, like selling the team on this is where we're going, this is what we're going to create, this is our mission, this is our vision, like this is what we're going to do together, and like selling on people, coming to work here, but like doing an actual sales process of like, let me talk through like your pain points, future state, current state, gap, like going through that whole process is like so energy draining for me. So I'd ask you this, in spirit of transparency too, Scale with Pros we've been doing it for about 6 months now. 50 to 70K a month. And, I've hired now a couple of sales guys, but even like I still, managing them, it's still those conversations that I have to go into. What advice would you give to me on that? Cause I'm like, I don't have anyone on my team that could like manage them, but it's like, it's me getting drawn in, and I'm like, I love the other businesses and things that I'm doing, but it's like this one that I'm like, gosh, I gotta, here we are again. Let's talk about this sales, and let's do objection training and this thing and that. And
the first thing that I've experienced, Cody, and I talk with this with my clients about this all the time, is I think all too often we take that bucket of, in this example, sales, right? And we say, I don't like sales, therefore I don't want to do sales. And we take the entire, as they say, baby, and throw it out with the bathwater. The whole thing goes out there. We don't like sales, therefore I don't want to do any of this thing. The thing I've discovered is oftentimes there's parts of that thing that we enjoy. There's parts of it. And so that's what I would ask you. Like, is there any part of that any part of it all that gives you energy. We're like, let's break it down into details. Let's say mapping out the flow of how a sales conversation is going to go. You like writing it down or recording it. There's the actual doing of the call or prepping for the call and then doing it. There's the follow-up of a call. There's a follow-up afterwards to make sure it gets closed. There's the training. Is there any part of it at all that gives you any energy?
The data KPI mapping of like, okay, this is what our flow of like how many leads we need, cost per lead, you know, what our close rate needs to be, what our lead to booking ratio needs to be, then all the way down to close, average order, you know, value, cost per acquisition. Like, I like that side of it and like, you know, overseeing that piece, the data side, but it's like the actual diving into, you know, managing sales team and or doing the sales process is the part that's, you know, takes my energy away.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I'm the same way. I'm the same way with that stuff. And so I'm doing something similar. And in those early days, I think number one, the first mindset shift that I make in that time, Cody, when I do get into that spot where I'm not wanting to step into more pain, right? Because I know if I take this call or if I lock in and I book my calendar with sales calls, number one, I am the outlet to making those sales calls happen. And sometimes it can feel like it's a forever thing. Like we're committing our schedule to this thing for a long time. What I try to do is the things that drain my energy, I shift my brain over from I'm committing to this for a long time into I'm building. I get to build. I get to innovate on this thing. And so I love building things. I don't like maintaining things. I don't want to be in a consistent schedule of being on calls weekly or even doing a weekly call with the sales manager. Like I don't even like doing that stuff. And so that's the first thing is I try to gamify it and say, okay, my job is to build this. I'm going to give myself an actual time window or a number of reps that I'm going to take to build this thing. I'll say 10 sales calls. I'll say 15 sales calls or whatever it is. So then my brain, at least the way that I work, I can encapsulate 15 or 20 sales calls in my brain. I can understand that that's not a long-term commitment. I can go, cool, this is 1 month, 15 sales calls, 1 month, I'm allocating this on my calendar, and this is the outcome that I'm going to build, and here's the next step with it. And so that helps me anyway, because anytime it feels like it's a long-term commitment on my calendar, it feels like I'm getting trapped again. Right? It feels like, oh no, that's the opposite. I want to be able to go do what I want to do at 11 o'clock on a Thursday. The next thing, dude, is I will take that and I'll break it down and say, like I said, is there any part of this thing that I actually enjoy? And how can I step into every month or every quarter just doing that and delegating one more piece off that I don't like?
I'm making a note on my phone here because I'm like, I gotta do this as homework after. And I apologize on the screen share thing. It's like close out of your browser and restart it to allow screen share. I'm like, I can't do that. We're mid podcast,
No,
so I
you're good,
apologize.
I'll visualize it, and then what I could do is I have a page on my personal site that I can send people to, or I can send you to even.
Oh yeah, we could put it in the show notes for YouTube and Spotify, iTunes, and all that.
It's Trevor Mauch, TrevorMauch.com/freedom. So trevormauch.com/freedom. There's no opt-in over there. There's nothing. It's got pictures of some of my models. It's got my entrepreneur freedom formula over there. And then the other thing is my business growth levels. So it breaks down the threes and tens, 0 to 100,000, 100 to 300,000, 300,000 to a million, million to 3, 3 to 10, 10 to 30. It breaks that down. It breaks down the pain lines we experience at each level that we have to get over. And then it breaks down across the 9 parts that I see in growing a business of freedom and impact. It breaks down exactly what we need to do to grow to that next level. And so where you are is you're in the performer phase. Like in that level of 300,000 to a million, the identity that we adopt as an entrepreneur is we are a performer. So when we look at identity, we're going to get to a million by you being really, really good at one or two things, right? You being really good at making the program or creating the marketing behind it or whatever it is, or selling. The challenge is once we get near or over, which you guys are right near it, or over that million, we have to transition over into builder, which you're amazing at that. You've done that.
Yeah, I have multiple other companies that are like at a 8-figure mark. It's like this newer thing because it's like, you know, those companies, it's like they have like a sales director, you know, maybe a couple sales managers, sales teams, and it's like, I'm so far removed where it's like I'm leading a leader that leads a leader, you know, and so it's like this like dynamic.
Yeah, and so you've been through that, and so what I would do here is you have two questions since you already had the skill set to do that. Either I bring in an amazing salesperson who is better than you at this, and they can interview you, they can pull it out, they can make the whole sales flow, they can manage it, which might require you to have much lower margins for a season of time. because you're probably gonna have to pay them pretty damn well. But then you're gonna be able to map out the KPIs and map out what you like of it, and then maybe have the weekly call with them to look at the numbers, and then maybe you're enjoying that part of it. Or we just put our heads down, like I said, and encapsulate it into a very defined project. This is a 30-day project. I'm taking 15 calls. What I'm gonna do with this calls is map these things out. It's gonna output into this, and then I'm gonna train this person on this thing to take away everything except for the parts that I like. Now that's easier said than done, right? Because there's challenge in there. But I think the biggest thing, dude, is especially when you're in the position that you are, where you've built bigger businesses, we have to actually ask ourselves, are we ready to go into startup mode again?
That was the hard thing for me when I was like starting this. I'm like, man, like the commitment to me of like where I'm like, I want to build this Scale with Pros, membership community and the, higher level like one-on-one consulting where we have done for you services, done with you services. The reason I'm like, I want to do this, even though I have to go through some of that pain and suffering again, is I just would like to be in this type of business for the rest of my life. And so that's what made the decision of like, yeah, like I'm going to have to do the pain and suffering. But once I'm at this, that next level with it, then I'm in then my unique genius again of like working on the things that I love in it. So that was, kind of the thing. Cause outside of this, like I don't have a desire to really start any other businesses. I'd rather just buy, which has been the thing that I have been doing. Cause it's like, all right, already existing infrastructure, bring my unique ability, help that company grow. But yeah, that's the trade-off we make. And it was, I wanted to build it from the ground up. Cause I'm like, I want to build it like the way that like all of the unique skills and things that I've, me and my team have to bring those to market. And so that was the choice. So I get to work through all this, but that was the choice I had that, I decided to make.
Dude, and here's another thought on this as well, is there's those pain lines I talk about at 3s and 10s, right? So you're in that pain line or nearing that pain line of the 300,000 to $1 million mark. And like, so the pain line for that, it is delegation, which you're amazing at. You've done that tons of times, but it's accomplishing tasks through other people. And so people who are listening to this, if you are that 300,000 to $1 million, you keep on hitting that spot, it's gonna be insanely hard to scale up to $1 million, get above $1 million and stay there if you can't delegate, right? So you've got to nail delegation. And what we're gonna delegate in that phase of the business is use the energy audit. I've got a worksheet on that. I think it's just carrot.com/energy. It's free, just go grab it. There's a video that walks you through how to do that. And the energy audit, I do that quarterly because I'm always trying to prune, right? If we don't do an energy audit consistently, what happens is it's almost like a garden. All the weeds take over, and then it's a giant project to get that garden clean again, right? We've got to spend an entire couple days that weekend just pulling weeds, and it's painful. Versus if every week that gardener's out there plucking weeds when they're small, it's going to stay manageable. And so on a quarterly basis, that's my cadence, Cody, is I've got a couple things I do myself and with my clients. I go, okay, the first thing I do is energy audit, the very first thing. Then the next thing with my coach I've had for years, Dan Martell. I worked with Dan way before he wrote the book, Buy Back Your Time.
Yeah.
I'm in that book, not by name, he used a different name. He's like, Trevor, can I put you in the book for this example of what you did wrong? I'm like, yeah, go for it, man. So I'm in the book, but I saw Dan grow through that entire phase of his life to become the person he is today. One of the things that I discovered, as we're growing and as we're really stepping into the energy audit, is once we do the energy audit, then we've got to decide what are we going to delegate. And he's got this amazing process in that book called the DRIP matrix, DRIP. And so I'm going to take directly from energy audit. Then I go, great, let me take the things that drain my energy. And the DRIP matrix is just this like a 4-box square. And in the bottom left is things that drains my energy and doesn't drive revenue. Upper left is things that drives revenue, but also drains my energy, which is for you sales, right? In the upper right is things that drives revenue and you love, it gives you energy. Okay. And then the bottom right is what he calls the investment bucket. And that's things that gives you energy, but you don't really know how it's going to drive any revenue anytime soon. And so the very first thing we got to do every quarter is I'm going to take the things that drain my energy and don't drive revenue. They go in the bottom left corner, which is the delegation bucket. And I'm going to immediately, my very first projects are delegating those things off. The next thing, Cody, that I do is every quarter, I pick something in the upper left bucket of things that drive revenue and drain your energy is the replacement bucket. Every quarter, I'm going to pick one, maybe two things to replace myself in. It's just like clockwork. That's part of my quarterly process. What am I going to replace myself in this quarter? And those are the hardest ones because you're doing them. They drive revenue. You're probably pretty good at them when you do them, but you don't like to do them. And here's the thing that happens, dude, is we will not grow into pain, right? So you know that you hopping on more sales calls is going to create more things in the back end. You know it's going to create more customers that we got to fulfill on. There may or may not be things that you know you got to work on fulfillment and on onboarding. And there's probably parts in the back end of fulfillment. I'm involved in these things still that maybe aren't fully nailed process-wise or delegated the way that you want them to. So then we're looking upstream and we have an aversion then, whether we're recognizing it or not, to go do that sales call because we know it's going to create more pain in the back end. That's something I'm trying to be aware of, to go, okay, what do I need to sequence? Because I will not step into pain. Yeah, just naturally, we'll try to avoid getting on that sales call. When we hit those pain lines, there's a few things that happen. We sabotage inadvertently. I won't be thinking about it, but I won't answer that email back. I won't answer that text message back. I'll be late getting follow-up to that lead. I will not want to, and I'll schedule things over the top of that sales call block. And we'll sabotage doing the very thing that will help grow our business because we know, like I said, when we do that, it'll create more pain. The second thing that we'll do when we hit that pain line, when it gets hard, is we'll settle. We'll go, man, it was way easier when I was like, let's say you have a $5 million a year business and it's getting really, really hard and you're just hitting that $3 million to $10 million pain line. You're going to go, man, this business was way easier when it was $800,000 a year and it was me and one person. I was making 60% profit margins. And they'll want to settle back to a phase that they know that they've mastered, that is easier to them mentally because they're, like you said earlier, they're not ready to push through to grow their identity to be able to be the person that's capable of going above that spot that they're stuck at. So they'll settle, which there's nothing wrong with settling. I think that's something I want people to recognize. It's not illegal. It's not illegal to settle, to pull your business back to a smaller business, a small giant. It's not illegal to do that, to wrap the business around you and not have a big team. What I want people to think about is why you're doing it. If you're doing it because that's truly what gives you joy, if you're doing it because that's truly, that size of business will fully fund that life vision that you've got and you don't need it any bigger, and you love 80% plus of the time you're spending in your work, that's probably as big as that business needs to get. What did you hire it to do? It's doing exactly what you hired it to do. And I want my businesses to do three things. I should be doing work that interests me, right? In my entrepreneur freedom formula, you guys can find at trevormauch.com/freedom, there's three circles, like a Venn diagram. The first one at the top is purpose. We should find interest and purpose in the work that we do. If we don't, then it's just, there's always gonna be resistance. Now, you don't have to be passionate about that thing. If I love mountain bike riding, and let's say that's my number one passion, I don't need to build a business around my passion. I think that's a misnomer. A lot of people are like pressuring themselves to build a business around something they're passionate about. I think you should be interested in the thing you're doing. I think you should want to master it and be really good at it. I think that's good. You don't have to be passionate about it. Your business should fuel your passion. It doesn't have to be your passion. Okay? So then the second thing that our businesses should do for us is they should fund our vision. So that vision that we have out there, that life vision, and I call it your life vision story. I work hard with my clients to really get insanely clear with that life vision story. And then we literally read through every line of it. And I ask them, like, okay, read that line. Does that feel heavy or light? And I've found that when people have resistance growing a business, and then I say, well, the vision should drive every decision, I go, awesome. So for that vision, there's some reason you're not stepping into that. And oftentimes the vision they created isn't theirs. It's not what they actually want. It's what they think that they should want. It's what they think the world wants of them. And so we'll read through that vision, dude. And I've been able to help people get through that pain line just simply by recognizing what they actually really want and throwing the parts of their vision away that are heavy. If it's light, it's right. If it's heavy, ask why. It's probably something you don't actually want. So we'll wrestle through that. So your business should fuel and fund your vision, your life vision, whatever that lifestyle looks like, whatever the impact is that you want to make in the world looks like, and however much that costs. Any more than that, like you mentioned, is diminishing returns. Dude, the third thing that business should do for us, then, it should really give us that ability to have to make that impact. I should be interested in my work. It should give me energy. I should enjoy doing it. Doesn't have to be my passion. It should fuel the vision. and it should make some sort of a positive impact in the world that I'm happy about. If it does those three things, I'm good. In that spot right there where you are, it's hard. We're sub-million, we're in performer mode. You've got to do those things, as you already know, to get to that million plus. And then as you're stepping into builder, it's that one or two hires that is going to be the unlock. But it's a hard phase, man.
So it's funny because it's like it's a reminder going back to it, because it's been like a few years since I like started something from scratch again. Like the last 2 years, I've just, took money that I was making from things and invested in other companies that were already doing, multiple millions a year in revenue. And so it's like very different problems to go in and help those solve. So it's been definitely a humbling experience of going back to the basic fundamentals. But yeah, no, and I love that, just your thought process overall on business and, the way that you should set things up for your life to, live the best life. I'm such a big fan of, every week I call it like my smart day, smart week, where like, at, end of the week on Sundays, I do kind of a review of the last week. I go through a series of questions and just kind of like think time. And then during that, then I plan my next week. And I always start with like my personal stuff that I put on the calendar first, because then it makes sure that it goes on the calendar, because it's very easy to just put all the business stuff on. It's like, putting on, I want to go play pickleball with friends like at this day and this time. I'm just going to put it on the calendar, just like it's a work appointment, Doing that has been one of the habits that's really helped me a lot, was specifically in that order. Because when I first started doing it, I just did all the business stuff, and then all that would end up on my calendar was business stuff, and then there wasn't really room for the personal stuff. And so I found doing the personal first has helped me with like booking in to make sure I'm getting to the gym, making sure that, we have the date nights, making sure that, going and like seeing friends or going and visiting family, it just helps keep it on the calendar. Also with our traveling too, this like work-life integration of like last week I was in the Dominican Republic for an event that I was speaking at. And so like me and my wife, we got there like a couple days early. So like we can like go check out, the beach and do different stuff. And then we stayed like one day a little bit longer so we could like, hang out and do stuff, but also it was like work. So it's like kind of like meshing in these things to like make it fun versus, we see a lot of people that like travel all the time for work, and it's like it's all just always work the whole time. And we've started just adding on like a day or two before or after, and like going and doing the work on the trip, but then like making it like a fun thing for, me and my wife too.
We've got to recognize that the business is a tool, right? And then we have to ask that question, well, a tool to do what? And I think if people got nothing else from this podcast, is just really going back and asking that question, what did I hire my business to do for me? And get specific with it. Ask that question with no limiting beliefs. Don't even like eliminate the word how. Like you don't have to know how to do it. You just have to know that it's possible. When we treat it from that standpoint, that this is a tool, we then go, well, like I said, a tool to do what? We have to get really specific. So I create what I call non-negotiables for my business. I've got five of them. They're the same ones I've had since 2012. When those businesses were not working out the way that I wanted to, making some money, but I was hitting the pain lines. My energy was getting drained. My health wasn't as good. I sat down and wrote down things I liked the least about my businesses. And I'm like, something's got to change, because I'm just going to go get a job if it keeps this. And I wrote down a big old list, because what I was challenged with, Cody, was I was trying to write a vision. I was trying to write a vision of what I thought I wanted out of my businesses. But I think when you're in one of those insanely hard phases and you just keep on getting energy drain, it's really hard to get yourself to even think about vision, because we're just so in the moment, so in the weeds. We're so beat down by that last 1, 2, 3 years of just energy draining things. And so I said, well, what I can identify really easy is what I don't like. So I'm gonna write down a big old list, and then I'm gonna circle the 3, 4, 5 that are the most important ones, where I'm like, okay, these ones here, like I don't ever want to run or be a part of any business ever if they can't match these 5 things. And then I just went, okay, well, what's the best way to find out what you do want is you look at the opposite of what you don't want. And so I just drew a line to the right. And I go, well, inconsistent income was one of the things I liked the least about my previous business. I'd make $140,000 one month split with my business partner after expenses, and then 2 months later we'd make $9,000. And at the end of the year, our tax statement looked decent, but you're stressed to crap because it's inconsistent. And so on the right side, one of my non-negotiables still today is consistent, predictable income. Another one below that is I was building a business that didn't build a valuable asset. It was transactional. I was making money, but there was no real asset there. If something happened to me or if I got tired of it or was ready to move on, there was nothing to sell. And so I wrote, well, I don't like that. So then I put on the other side of it, build a long-term valuable asset is non-negotiable. Every business I'm a part of today has to be building a long-term valuable asset that could be sold if I wanted to. And then there's three others. One of mine, you mentioned unique ability, which comes from strategic coach. I did strategic coach in 2012 around that time period. And one of my deals was, man, I don't like that my work is draining my energy most of the time. So my non-negotiable to the right was the opposite of that, which is work within my unique abilities. And so every single year I look at those 5 non-negotiables and I ask myself as I'm going into the year, are these still happening? What usually happens, Cody, when a business gets to a spot that I'm not enjoying it for too long, it's likely not meeting one of those 5 non-negotiables I talked about. There's 2 more I didn't mention, but it's likely not meeting one of those things. And then I go, well, I hired my business to do these things. Is it doing these things? No, what do I got to change? And then every quarter, I've got that cadence of energy audit, drip matrix, delegate the things, replace myself in one major thing per quarter, and then trade that time up into things that give me energy and drive revenue. And it's not immediate, but over the course of a year or 2, dude, your business life changes. It's just crazy.
No, it's so cool. I love the non-negotiables. I have a list at home where it's just like I know I'm being successful when, and I just like read through, and usually when I'm feeling the least happy, I can read that and also be unaligned with the things that I know I'm being successful when. And it's like, I feel like we just have to be reminded more than we need like a new thing. It's just like going back to the fundamentals, going back to the foundation.
We let the world like dictate our calendar and what we want to do. And that's why I'm like, I'm not by nature a crazy organized guy. I'm a run and gun, do things at the whim. I'm ready to do things off the cuff. I don't like preparing, like all those types of things, right? As I've grown, I've really appreciated pulling back and resting more and getting my mind quiet. Because when my mind is quiet and when I'm resting on a consistent cadence, whether it's in my relationship with my wife on our Tuesday morning date mornings, because we found date nights don't work out for us in this season of life because kids have activities and we kept on finding our date nights would just get canceled half the time. So we have Tuesday morning date mornings from 8 a.m. till 11 a.m. every single Tuesday now. And that recharges us. And we've got our quarterly couple retreats we've been doing for a long time. And then on the business side, what's the cadence there that helps us rest and helps us get mentally clear? Because when we're mentally clear, then we actually get a chance to make decisions. We get a chance to think deeply about what we actually want, not what just got put in front of us by the world or by other people's priorities. And there's a couple things that work amazingly well for me, Cody, that have changed my life as I've been doing in the last handful of years. The first one is at the annual basis. I do something called my pre-stacked year. And so I'll verbalize through it, but I've got this calendar. I've got a planning workbook that I've made for myself, and I've let my clients use the same thing. And it's a 1-page calendar. It's set up differently than almost every calendar out there visually. It just looks different. It doesn't look like a calendar when you first see it. But my wife and I sit down, and it's got a handful of categories. It's got personal travel. It's got family events. It could be birthdays or things like that. It's got Trevor growth stuff, which is like, it's the marathon I'm going to run, or it's the whatever, trip with the buddies or something. It's got business travel, and then it's got business events. And so I've got those, I think those are the 5 categories. So we'll sit down before any business thing is put on there at all. And my wife and I look at the goals for the year. We look at the travel that we're doing with our kids, with each other. And we pre-stack the year with the things that are going to give us the most joy first. Then I'll go to my EA, and then we'll look at everything else and make sure it fits well. And the year looks like it's built for energy. And then that's the annual. So then that goes all on the calendar. Every single bit of that goes on the calendar then. I start my years with a blank calendar. I don't bring forward any of my recurring meetings. All that, like I assume, bam, it's gone. I burnt it down. The start of the year gets rebuilt. And some of those make it back on. Most don't though. And so we'll start with the pre-stacked year. And then on the quarterly basis, like I said, then in the pre-stacked year, I've already got on there the quarterly retreats with my wife. I've got on there the quarterly retreats with my leaders and my businesses. I've got the personal growth things and the challenges we're going to do and the things with my buddies on there. And then I'll look at that pre-stacked year, and I'll look at our business goals, and I'll look at my goals, and we'll look at the calendar and go, cool, now let's do a quick quarterly review. Where do we need to make sure that the right things are, and what am I going to change in my calendar? Every quarter we're making calendar structure changes. I might drastically change my Thursdays because I discovered I don't like my Thursdays. And then on a monthly basis, my EA and I are going to review that calendar. She drives all this. When I used to drive it, I would forget to do it. So that's part of her job. The EA's number one job. So I would always try to find a metric. Like what's the success metric for an EA?
It is, yeah, that is a tough one. For me, I'm just like making sure Cody's happy with all of the things that I give her. Like, don't have to bring Cody back involved once it's been given away.
So, dude, I've got two that have been working great with my EA. The first one's around energy. Okay, so I've got a kind of an internal barometer, and we ask this question every week. And she says, "What was your energy number this week?" And for me, it's like 50%, up to 100%. But I want to be over 80%, meaning, yeah, most of my days I'm getting energy from my days. If it's under 80%, that's one of her critical metrics, because then she needs to figure out what was it that drained my energy that week. And she needs to drive making sure that we ask hard questions to change the things that we need to change.
Do you have any books or like questions that you'd like given her to like help you with that? Because now I'm literally making the note. I'm like, I got to meet with Rochelle on this.
No books on that. I mean, Martell's book, Buy Back Your Time, is solid, but I think for me, it's more of a gut feeling. Like, and she'll ask this question to me on Fridays. You'll know by the end of that week if your job gave you energy. If you're like, dude, this was a great week. I feel like mostly every single day I was producing good work. I was in my energy zone. There's a couple hard things I had to deal with, but yeah, 80% of it, bam, I was popping. I'm ready. I would keep working. I don't need the weekend. That's when I'm over 80%. When you get to the end of the week and you're like, I had so many things. I know I did a million things this week. I have no clue what I did. I don't feel like I moved forward the most important things, and you're drained and you're ready for the weekend. That's when she'll just say, hey, great. So let's look at the schedule. What days sucked the most this week? And I go, man, Tuesday sucked. Well, why? Because I had these 4 coaching calls and I felt like I was late on all of them, and they all ran together, and we need to add more buffer between them. Let's try that. I think I'm going to enjoy Tuesdays more if I add more buffer. So just kind of figuring out like what day sucked the most. And then we need to look at the calendar and ask why. The second metric with my EA that I think was the coolest one is I have my 5 monthly commits process, and then I've got my 3 to 5 weekly commits. So I look at my quarterly goals, and every month my EA and I sit down, it's 10 minutes max. And we go, cool, Trevor. Here's where the company's going. Here's some of your personal things. Let's build your top 5 commits. I always pick one thing there's a buyback, like one thing that month I'm going to be buying back my time on. I always make sure there's at least 1 or 2 key personal ones, and then maybe 2 key business ones in addition to the buyback. So there's 5 max. I don't give myself any more than 5 commitments for the month. Then every week on a Monday call, we'll pull up the weekly calendar. I'll map 5 minutes, map out my weekly 3 to 5 commits. She reviews the weekly calendar, make sure I have time to actually do those things versus just Trevor's going to magically somehow get it done with a full schedule. Put those on there, which I did that for years. And so the other metric for her is, did I get 80% or more of my commitments done that week? If I got less than 80% of my commitments done, that's her responsibility to figure out why. Every day, she asks me a couple of questions around my commitments. We've got a little spreadsheet, Cody, I can share it with you, where it's like, in progress, not started, in progress, or complete. And so she'll go, how was this one? You had 3 hours to work on that yesterday. I'll go, oh, it was completed. So she'll change it to complete. Oh man, honestly, Danny, I got distracted. I didn't do that thing. And she'll go, okay, so is that priority over and above these other things? I'll go, actually it is. What do you want to move tomorrow to get that done? Oh, let's move this thing. And so she knows her job is to get me to 80% or more of my commits. Dude, if I'm high energy and I get my commitments done, I don't care what else she uses her time for. That's where the biggest value is going to come from an EA. And you will find time to find ways to fill their time. But oftentimes, dude, I think what we do with our EAs is we treat them as like a basket for orders. We toss these orders over into them at the whim of our brain. That moment, there's something we need to get done. And then when we do that, we train our EA to be reactionary. And we train them to wait for us to give them something. If they're in that mode, what happens when you're insanely busy or you're so overwhelmed that you don't even know what you need to delegate? That EA is sitting there waiting to go like, I want to help you, but I don't know where. So if you put them into a strategic EA, where strategically their number one job is to do those 2 things like I mentioned, keep me high energy and make sure I get my commitments done, then they then are driving the conversation. They're strategically helping to make sure they're in the right spot, and then you can still delegate the tasks to them that are reactionary. So we need to flip that relationship, and it's game changing.
Yeah, no, I've just been making a bunch of notes. I feel like I have a really great working, relationship with things with my EA and the things that she does. And there's a lot of proactiveness and things that I have her doing that are like these recurring different things that she handles and like protects me from, getting sucked into things that I shouldn't be. And which is great, but I like the energy and then the commitment. Sometimes I'll have the commitments that I made for the week, and then I haven't communicated as clearly on some of those. And so then as other people are trying to book times on my calendar, they end up getting booked up, and it's like I didn't give myself enough time to like get the project done because I really needed 2 hours. I was oftentimes with myself, I'll be over optimistic in how quickly I can get something done for myself. And then it's like I gave myself an hour, then it backed up right to something else I got put on my calendar, so I didn't get to finish it. And then it rolls into, later in the week, and it's like, gosh dang it, I didn't even get that thing done that I needed to.
I ran my stuff like the way that you're saying for years, and I was still able to accomplish a lot. The challenge was, man, like I talked myself into thinking that I did my best work when things were chaotic. In actuality, I don't think it was that I did my best work when things are chaotic. That was just my default because I didn't know any better. I didn't know how to be more proactive. I didn't know how to bring people in to truly be a good partner in those areas. And I still have to work hard on it, dude. I'd give myself a B minus, B plus on it.
It's like a summitless journey. It's like leadership. It's just like this thing we're always going to, we're always trying to get better at. And it is interesting where like I think sometimes people could feel so frantic with like things going on. It's like that's what they think it should feel like every day. And it's like things don't have to feel frantic to like actually accomplish and move things forward. But that was a really great nugget on that of like that energy and, making sure that, my commitments. And that's something I need to share that with her. So then she's like, I could just ask like, hey, like make sure this goes on my calendar and give me more time than I actually probably put on here. I'd rather end up getting time back and then be able to do something else than not give myself enough time.
Do we have like a few more minutes to dive deeper on that one there? Because I can give you another tactical thing.
Yeah. Let's do it. I'm good if you're good for a few more minutes.
Yeah. So let's talk about the EA relationship. Okay, so the way that most people do it and the way that I did it for 8 years, like long time, the majority of the time that I've had EAs, except for the last 4 or 5 years, is I would have my commitment list over here, right? Whatever it is, a piece of paper or a spreadsheet thing like I've got now. I've got it's called a priority tracker that I made about 5 years ago and I've been using ever since. We would have our priorities. And then as things came up that we needed help with, we would then delegate to our EA. And then half the time we're wondering what our EA is doing oftentimes, right? And we either don't delegate more things to them because we think they're overwhelmed, or they say that they're overwhelmed because they are, and they're doing a bunch of really low level tasks that don't really matter, but they are busy. Or we delegate too much to them because we're like, I got to keep them busy, and I just start sending all this crap over to them. And they're not able to help us on the really things that are the most important. So what happens then when we're in that mode, we treat our priority list like it's ours. What I mean by that is it's my document. She doesn't really see it. I'm the one accountable to making sure that it gets done, but she can see it, right? But she'll look at it and go, well, he didn't really put much on here this week, so he must be busy, or he must already know what he needs to do, and so I'm not going to really ask the questions. And they would treat it like it was my thing because I told them it was mine. And if I didn't complete it, it wasn't a big deal because they just assumed, oh, he's the boss. So what I started to do is I said, well, what if I flipped it, and what if it actually became my EA's responsibility and job to manage my commitment list, not mine? What if when we hopped on our calls on Monday and Friday, what if rather than it being my job on the agenda to pull up my commitment list, and I would forget half the time because I would just have a whole list of things I just needed to get out of my brain to them, and we get to the end of the meeting and no review of commitment list happened at all because I was leading it? What if I just flipped it on its side and I said, my EA fully owns and leads this entire meeting, not me. I show nothing on my screen. Everything gets brought up on the screen by my EA. My EA owns my priority list, not me. I can add things to it. She can add things to it, but she owns it. Once I started flipping that around, then the EA stepped in and felt responsibility for it, and also felt more of an ability to help me make the greatest impact in my business. So on meetings now, when I show up on a Monday or Friday, I just get to sit back and be a participant the very first thing that she always has to do is pull up my commitment list, my priority tracker. And then she just goes, awesome, Trevor. How'd you do this week so far? Oh man, Danny, that one I didn't start. Here's why. Let's adjust this the way my calendar is for next week, because I just keep falling into this trap. Or Danny, I've discovered I can't put that type of meeting after this type of thing because my brain just isn't there and I just can't do the work. So let's try it on Wednesday or whatever. Another thing that I do, Cody, that massively helps is once again, she owns making sure I get 80% or more of my commitments done, not me. And so we'll go through that. And where I keep on stumbling for me was oftentimes when I'd get to that block of 2 hours of time to do that thing, that priority number 2, it'd be a calendar invite that would say, focus block on whatever. Focus block on building this funnel or building this page or whatever, building a job description or whatever it is, right? And I wouldn't do it. I would go, okay, like, what do I got to do now? Okay, I know there's this template somewhere. Then I'd go over here, or I know there's this email. I go in my inbox. I'm distracted. Hour later, I didn't get it done. So then I only have 45 minutes left in that block. I know there's not enough time to get it done in 45 minutes. Then I would go, I'm just going to shift over to something else completely. What I asked her to do now is say, hey, Trevor, what do you need ready for you in that focus block to get that done so you don't have to go look for anything? I go, well, I need this document. I need this. Can you go ahead and grab that template there? I definitely need feedback from this person on these 3 things. Can you have them add that? So when I show up, that calendar invite, dude, has everything I need to get the work done. I'm not going into email. I'm not going into Slack, nothing like that. Dan Sullivan, going back to him, he has a concept in one of the books back here. He's an old school dude, but he would say at his office, he has a desk. The only purpose of that desk, and you're not allowed to do anything else on that desk other than his focus work. And he said, that desk is clear and clean all the time. His assistants, when they know he's going to come in and do this particular project, they'd have the things on that desk ready. He would walk in, he'd do the work, he'd walk out. Their job is to clear the desk and put it where it needs to go. And the office is always empty except for when he's going to focus in it. And I go, man, he gets to walk in and he's not starting with the dirty desk and having to go, okay, where was this book and where was this note, and go ask Cheryl, whatever. And all of a sudden he wasted 35 minutes. Now he's out of his mojo. He gets to literally show up, everything's prepped, do his work, focus work, bam, and leave. And so that's how I started thinking about those focus blocks, is how does my EA own making sure that I have the best chance of getting this work done? She does the proverbial digital version of clear the desk. The only purpose of this time is to get this one thing done. Don't look at anything else. And so that's been helpful. Your EA owns your priority list, not you. It's a complete flip. So rather than you sharing it with them, you work with her to make the tool that you're going to use, but she owns it. She brings it up on a Monday and Friday call. She shares it on the screen.
I like that 2 times a week call, like the Monday, Friday.
Yep, exactly. And then you guys will just get good at figuring out, how do you pivot when things didn't work? Hey, Trevor, what about that didn't work? Why didn't that work?
It's like understanding it's like that type of meeting doesn't make sense to have after that, or this type of thing doesn't make sense to have in the afternoon, or it's like that needs a morning time energy, or, that type of activity just doesn't make sense on that day of the week because of something else going on. Yeah, I really like that.
Cool.
I mean, that was amazing. And I'm sure everyone listening is like, oh my gosh, if anyone that has an EA should be, if you're not, guys, you need to rewind back and go through and be taking notes here. I have a bunch of notes now that I'll be getting with my EA on to go through this stuff. It's so good. And I really enjoyed, I think, this podcast a lot with you, Trevor, because it's like, instead of like the tactical things of like, okay, here's just the things to do to grow and scale your business. It's like a lot around like, yes, like doing that, but like making sure that you're loving what you're doing. You're building a business that, allows you to live the life that you want from like an energy standpoint, financial standpoint, the impact like all of the things are considered, in the conversations that we've been having. And then you had all those nuggets on the executive assistant, and I'm like, I feel like I do a pretty good job. I'm like, I'm very happy with the relationship that I have with my her name's Rochelle, and everything she does, I'm like super happy. But I'm just like, this just unlocked like another level of like, okay, like this is just additional stuff we could do to be more efficient and like be more successful and working together. And so I'm personally really excited to meet with her and go through this. I was literally like, okay, I need her to start listening to this episode at about the 40-minute mark so that she can, obviously we'll go through the notes, but so she could just hear it from me too.
I love it, dude. I love it. I'll
So,
kind of recap one last thought that kind of encapsulates everything we've talked about. We're all going to go through trials and challenges, man. Right? Like whether it's this last year with my dad passing or a challenge in business, we're all going to go through those trials and challenges. And the thing that I've at least personally found is I think like there's not a better personal growth tool that I've found for me personally in my life than business. And one thing that I've realized is just like with my business growth levels, you guys can grab it. Like, so there's no opt-in. Just go to that page, trevormauch.com/freedom. Look at those graphics, copy them, put them wherever. One of those top things is the identity, right? What identity do we need to step into and build upon to be able to grow through that next level? And your business will never outgrow your identity. And so I've got a buddy, he's a local entrepreneur here, runs a 9-figure-a-year company, amazing guy. If he were to come into my businesses because he is the identity of this person who's accomplished this and can do these things, my business would have no choice but to grow because the identity pulls up or pulls down that business's capability. And so this is the chance that we get, guys. Like, we grow through these trials. And when you hear Cody and I talking about all these amazing things that we currently get to enjoy in our business, we get to enjoy those because of trials. We get to enjoy those because they were insanely hard and there were problems we had to solve and we had to grow. Our identity had to increase and change and shift in order to even have the chance to have the privilege to get to the spot. But you know what? Where Cody is and where I am, the challenges I'm going through are because I need to get better. I need to grow to that next level of identity and get around the right people, get the right coach like Cody, and make sure that you're surrounding around the right people who are 1, 2, 3, 4 steps ahead of you in your business to help show the way, to shine the light of the person you need to become and the possibility that you can do it. So guys, if you're struggling in business, you want to grow, the very first thing is get around the right people. And so dive into what Cody has to offer with Scale with the Pros. I've got a free podcast, Entrepreneur Freedom Formula. I talk about all this stuff in detail. Go check that out. But man, I love this topic, man. Thanks for the invite.
yeah, absolutely, Trevor. No, I appreciate your time. Appreciate you being here, and pretty sure going to be seeing you this summer. So
Yeah.
excited to be able to do that and spend some time with you. And yeah, just grateful to have you here. And I'm sure this is going to make a big impact for everyone listening. And again, thank you so much for being here. And guys, again, we'll put all the resources that Trevor mentioned in the show and the YouTube notes or Spotify, iTunes. We'll make sure all that makes it in the show notes for you guys to be able to get access to. But with that being said, as always, appreciate you guys. Make sure to subscribe if you're on YouTube. Make sure to leave a rating if you're on Spotify or iTunes. And we'll see you guys in the next episode.